Okay, we're on the record.
Council agenda, Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, regular Township Council meeting of December 18th, 2018.
Posting of notice and adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the municipal building and on the municipal website on December 20th, 2017, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record and the Newark Star Ledger on December 27, 2017, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers on December 20th, 2017. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for the flag salute. Mr. DePiero, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Ms. Grignani?
Present.
Ms. McCarthy?
Here.
Ms. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Carriffy?
Here.
Also in attendance are Business Administrator Keith Kasmark, Township Attorney Jim Lott, and Township Clerk Colette Madden. Council President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, January 8th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m., reorganization meeting, agenda meeting. Be following that. And January 22nd, 2019 at 7 o'clock be our regular meeting. Approval of minutes, agenda meeting November 8th, 2018, regular meeting November 20th, 2018, and the agenda meeting December 4th, 2018. Entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, presentation and reports. Colette, did you want to do that now?
Yes. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take just a few minutes. We will be swearing in our new Deputy Clerk, Leslie Miller. So before we start, I just want to say just a couple words about Leslie. I came on in 2015, late 2015, and it was a big transition, to say the least, coming onto this town. I'm a new guy, and everybody's questioning, who is this guy? And, you know, it was a new job to learn. And the transition was not the best, but it was, you know, we made it work. And Leslie, who was in another department at that time, really made all the effort to come on and help and do everything she can to assist me in making that transition, because she had experience in the clerk's office. And so she made my transition here very as easy as it could be. So I do thank you for that. And throughout that time, you know, I was then able to bring her into my office because I realized how invaluable she is to the clerk's office and to the success of this township. So we got her on, and she's been through the entire process. She's taken the courses, she's passed the certifications, but more importantly, she cares more than anybody I know, and she has clearly the hardest work ethic in that office. And I can tell you that the success of my office is instrumental to her being there. There's no question about that. So without her, I could not do what I've done, and I really do think this is really well-deserved, Leslie. So with this, without further ado, I'd like to call Leslie Miller up, and whoever will be swearing you in is Mr. Clark. Come on up.
Left hand on the Bible. All right. Are you ready for your oath of allegiance? I, Leslie Miller,
I, Leslie Miller,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States. I'm swearing myself in. I just I may be old, but I can still read. All right, so, all right, and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same and to the governments established in the United States
to the same and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state
And in
under
this
the
state.
authority of people,
and under the authority of people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I do further solemnly swear
I
or
do-
affirm
I do further solemnly swear or affirm
that I will impartially and justly perform all the duties of the office of Deputy Clerk.
that I will impartially and
Ju-
justly perform all the duties
of
of the office of Deputy Clerk,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Okay. Congratulations.
Well, maybe I should.
It's up to you, whatever you like.
It is, I just like to say that it's my honor.
Yeah.
This is my husband.
He's not like that at home, is he?
I just want to say it is an honor, a true honor to work with Khaled, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. He has given me so many opportunities, and he has believed in me, and when nobody else would. And it is really from the heart that I love working with him, for him, and I enjoy being on his team and partners with him.
Ditto. Truly ditto.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Definitely well deserved. Thank you.
Congratulations, Leslie.
It's always been a pleasure. My whole time here, it's always been a pleasure.
Same for my short time here.
Mike, you're a long time, right? Okay.
Me too.
All right.
Well, we might as well
Okay.
chime in.
Yes,
Us too.
Okay, at this time, we're going to have a presentation by Stanberry.
Yeah, I think they're gonna do it. Yeah, I just went to the mayor's conference room for a minute, I think, to make some last minute.
Oh, you want to skip forward while they get it?
Oh.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, yeah, we're going to move forward while they're getting ready. Mr. Lott, anything?
I have nothing, Mr. President.
Okay. Business Administrator, Mr. Kazmark?
Thank you, Council President. This week, my office finished one-on-one meetings with the various departments. We met with 18 of our department heads, just setting the path forward on operational issues and personnel issues for 2019. We're commencing, or continuing, I should say, meetings with the blue-collar for the blue-collar negotiations of their union contract. We held a meeting today. And I'll be reporting out at an executive session to the council on those processes in January. Tomorrow, December 19th, between 6 and 9, at the Knoll West, there will be a membership meeting. We invite everyone who is a member or user of the Knoll Golf Club to join with the leadership team up there, both on the Parsippany side and on the Kemper side. And I want to thank Danielle DeLuca from Kemper for organizing that meeting. We look forward to a productive discussion. We've also commenced our master plan meeting. I know there was one meeting with the community last week. We've started to meet with various department heads and Susan Favada, who's the planner, who's working on the master plan. So we will continue with those in the early months of 2019. And I also want to congratulate Leslie Miller on her appointment tonight as Deputy Municipal Clerk. Leslie's been a pleasure to work with the last 3 months, and I look forward to working with her in her new capacity.
Thank you. Stanberry, ready?
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Mark Potchment with Stanberry Development. I am a co-founder. My partner and co-founder John Meyer is also here this evening. We are from Columbus, Ohio. We are here on a regular basis. We are Stanberry Development. There's not some big committee back in Columbus. It's the two of us. We also have tonight our leasing partner, Mark Hayes, is here. Not sure where he is, right there. He is our leasing partner, so if there's any special requests for restaurants or retail spaces, you can talk to Mark. Our JV partners are here this evening, Claremont Companies from Far Hills, New Jersey. Jeff Bastow and Max Dorn. Claremont has been brought in for their multifamily and construction expertise for the project. Also here tonight is our growing legal team, Steve Perlman, Adam Peterson. Is Bob Garofalo here? Not that.
Joe O'Neill.
Bob's on his way. And Joe O'Neill. So my partner, John, and I started Stanberry 20 years ago to develop quality retail lifestyle centers, and the Shops at Union Hill on Route 10 in Denville was our first project when it opened in 2003. We purchased the vacant parcel, I should say the vacant office buildings, Intel Dialogic at 1515 Route 10, roughly 4 years ago. It was February 2015, with the vision of creating a mixed-use version of the shops at Union Hill. And over the last 4 years, we've been working to merge our vision for 1515 with Parsippany's vision, and the result is not only a transformative mixed-use project that puts Parsippany on the millennial map, it is also a transformative financially for the town, as it will create a $1 million annuity for Parsippany at stabilization that will grow to over $5 million annually towards the end of the 30-year pilot. In total, roughly $50 million and more will be paid to the town via the pilot over the 30 years than if the property was to remain a office building and we were to fill that office vacant office building with office tenants. How is that possible, you say? It's possible with 4 years of very difficult and intense negotiations between Stanberry and visionary town leaders to see the opportunity to make significant Route 10 traffic improvements, address the town's affordable housing needs, and stem the tide of corporate office tenants flocking to the millennial havens of Hoboken, Jersey City, and your Morris County neighbor, Morristown. However, without utilizing the redevelopment tools provided by the state, this project would not be possible. Let me be clear, in order for this project to address the town's affordable housing needs and the Route 10 improvements, a pilot is needed. A no vote on the pilot is a no vote on the district at 1515. No COA, no traffic improvements, no town center, and no to the additional $50 million in revenue. A no vote is, in essence, a yes vote to maintain the current office vacancy rates in Parsippany. To date, the following affirmative actions have been taken. Parsippany has declared the parcel an area in need of redevelopment. Parsippany has approved the redevelopment plan. Parsippany has approved the redevelopment agreement outlining the terms of the pilot and the RAB. Parsippany has amended the redevelopment plan to reduce the unit sizes on first reading, and they have approved the financial agreement on first reading. Tonight we are here for the second reading of those two ordinances. The benefits of this project are many. Regarding the COA Affordable Housing Plan, we are officially an interested party, not an intervener. Parsippany's ongoing lawsuit with Fair Share Housing. We continue to cooperate and are currently included in the town's plan, or we believe we are. The district at 1515 will provide 34 affordable units on site and will pay a total of $3.3 million into the town's affordable housing fund. Regarding the NJDOT traffic improvements, what we like to call the Trenton Miracle. Township engineer Gordon Meth, this was probably 3 years ago, suggested the concept of tying our project into the Dryden Way jug handle as a way to reduce traffic at the State Route 10 202 intersection. NJDOT rarely permits private development to tie into their jug handles. Let's see if I can get my pointer working here. The concept here is a direct tie-in to the back of our project right here. Right now, traffic movements on Route 10 come this way, take the jug handle, and go around to the Matt Cali campus. What is being proposed here is reconstruction of this access road between Delta Dental and our property, creation of a roundabout here, a new roadway here between the Parsippany portion of the project and the Hanover portion of the project, another roundabout here, and like I said, a direct connection to the jug handle. This piece right here will go away. So what this does from a more regional, traffic improvement, all the traffic generated from these properties, the Octagon Building, Delta Dental, and the Intel Dialogic or the 1515 project. Any traffic coming from 287 needs to make their way through the Matt Cali campus, down, through the 202 intersection, around, and back down to get here. Otherwise, they come down this way, go up around Wendy's, come down. Either way, all that traffic is being placed on that intersection. What this does, it permits the traffic coming from 287 to flip around the jug handle, come under Route 10, and directly access the properties, solving a huge traffic issue, not only here, but for these workers and visitors to these projects. The other thing it does is it creates a direct connection between this side of Route 10 and the Matt Cali campus. So anybody here looking to go to Starbucks, the new Starbucks here, the Delta Dental Complex, or hopefully our restaurants and retailers here, is a direct connection now between the Matt Cali campus and this side of Route 10. Stanberry, Parsippany, and our neighbors at Delta Dental have all attended meetings at DOT in Trenton and assisted in the approval of this rare opportunity to improve the 202 intersection. We are currently sitting on a $250,000 proposal from Langen Engineering to prepare the final engineering plans for these improvements. Unfortunately, we cannot release them until we have an affirmative vote. All roads within the development will either be owned and maintained by NJDOT in this area down here, or by the developer, these roads right here. There will be Parsippany will have no ownership or maintenance responsibilities. And this might be out of order a little bit. Go back to the town center slide. And I'll also use the model. Hopefully you have a chance to come up and take a look at the model that we prepared for the shopping center convention in New York City several weeks ago. But 1515 has been designed around a public town center known as a Wohnhof. You can see this configuration right here. These are the first floor retail buildings on Route 10 with the second floor restaurant patios. We have currently on 2 liquor licenses we intend to employ here. You see those are the lower buildings right here. And then the multi-use buildings behind that, the ground floor is retail, the upper floors is residential. It creates this public space here that I'm referring to as a Wohnhof. The Wohnhof is a Dutch design term that permits vehicular traffic, but it's designed to be secondary to the pedestrian, which is important here. Tenants are being carefully curated to provide a variety of dining options to cover breakfast, lunch, dinner, full service, and casual dining experiences. Boutique fitness concepts like spinning and yoga, all intended to activate the town center via outside dining, outside exercise classes, and communal public events. The main portion of the town center, once again, the portion you see right here, is being designed with the ability to easily close access to vehicular traffic for regular events such as Sunday morning farmers markets, arts festival, food truck festivals. The idea is to totally dedicate this over to the pedestrian experience for special events. We have had exploratory meetings with the Parsippany Parks and Recreation Department regarding collaborating on events, large and small, some existing, some new. Based on the initial meeting, we have generated a wish list to populate a full calendar of events. Some ours solely, some in collaboration with the town. Much work needs to be done, but it was certainly a great start. 1515, this town center concept is also important to note that this project is being specifically designed to attract millennials and empty nesters. Smaller units, more amenitized common space, and most importantly, the ability to walk downstairs for a cup of coffee, a yoga class, a concert or movie in the square, dinner or drinks with friends, something you cannot currently do in all of Parsippany. The town center component of this project is a really big deal. Regarding the pilot, make sure this is the first slide here. Regarding the pilot, we view this as another huge benefit to the town. It's highly complex, lots of legal documents to pour through, lots of calculations, but the end result is a huge benefit to the town. It's important to note that this project is, in total, is a $200 million project that will need to generate a 6.5% return in order to attract significant capital that will be needed for commercially viable bank financing. That's an important point. The property currently generates $430,000 in annual taxes, of which roughly $90,000 goes to Parsippany. The mandatory minimum pilot payment, which has been negotiated, would increase revenue to Parsippany to over $1 million annually at stabilization, growing each year to over $5 million towards the end of the pilot. And what is shown here, the bottom line is the number of years, 1 through 30. This is revenue from $500,000 up to $6 million. The red line you see here is the projected taxes of the stabilized office. So this isn't the vacant office building that sits there today. What this shows is the revenue generated if we were to lease that building again as it was when Dialogic was filling the whole building. So that's Parsippany's portion of that tax. What's shown here is what we call the mandatory minimum payment after the RAB. So this is what's been negotiated as a guaranteed minimum payment to the town. It ramps up in the later years as we get closer to the end of the pilot and full taxes. So from what that means number-wise, this column on a year-by-year basis is the minimum projected pilot payment. This red column is the projected taxes of the stabilized office. Over here you see the difference. You can see year by year. With this, you get down to around year 8 or 9, you start getting close to $1 million. You hit $1 million in year 12. So in this particular model, year 12, there's $1 million more coming to the town there with this project and with this pilot than there would be with no pilot and the existing office building. In total, close to $50 million down in the bottom right is the aggregate difference. Now, this similar graph, but this one shows the greater of the pilot or the minimum payment. Now this gets a little complicated, but the pilot revenue is based on revenue. So early in the pilot, our revenues are projected to be higher, generate a higher pilot payment than the minimum payment. Somewhere in this neighborhood, it switches over so that the minimum payment is required over the projected revenues. This is the best case scenario for both, for the town. So it shows the higher pilot payments for the revenue, and it shows the higher minimum payments towards the end. Once again, compared to the office building taxes. You see here, you get to year 3, and it's $1 million different in taxes to the town. In total, it's a $60 million difference over 30 years. The pilot for this project allows this project to create a much larger and much meaningful long-term rateable for the township, and permits the project to bear an otherwise undue burden of community benefits, the co-obligation, the NJDOT improvements. It's important to note again that this project cannot happen without the pilot, and it's important to also note again that the pilot is required due to extraordinary costs requested of the project, specifically the COA and the Route 10 improvements. How are we doing on time, Colin?
You're totally fine. Take your time. No problem at all. We're all right. I'll let you know.
Good. Well, I will draw my conclusion then. In conclusion, we have talked to a number of people. We have met with as many people as possible regarding this project. Decision makers, interested parties, general public, and we spent the past weekend with our team really trying to understand these concerns and answer the questions and address them. We have added, included printouts on the front table here that if you're interested, please come up and get. That we tried to assemble all the questions and concerns we've heard. We've answered them to the best of our ability, and we've footnoted those answers with specific places in the legal documents that address those concerns. We are available for questions. We welcome the opportunity to further discuss this transformative opportunity that literally sits right here in front of us. So any questions, happy to answer now, or whatever's at the council's pleasure. Not sure where logistically
Council
we
members
go
have
from here.
questions?
Do the council?
Any council members have?
Yeah, can I
questions?
just ask you, year 1, when does year 1 it doesn't begin, when does year 1 begin? It doesn't begin right out of that, you said at stabilization, does year 1 begin?
Yeah, that's a
So
good
that's a
question.
legal
Year-
question that I think I can probably help with.
Yeah, year 1 is at stabilization phase 1. I think that
Right.
it mentioned the phasing of the
Year
project.
one- the pilot period begins at the time the project is deemed to be substantially complete.
And that's estimated at, do we have an estimate on that?
That's typically tied to the issuance of the first CO or TCO for the building.
So that could be out about 3 or 4 years? is
So the
that-
construction schedule will defer to,
Yeah, so we're looking at breaking ground later next fall for that would be for late 2021, spring 2022. Is that correct? Yes. Grand opening. But that's phase 1. It's important to note that's also included in these projections is when phase 2 would come online. So at the conclusion of phase 1, which is the blocks of building closest to me, the grayer buildings farther away that don't have the detail is the phase 2 portion, which includes a large parking garage in the back corner.
Right, so then we would receive the 435 up until that point, is that?
so what will happen is that once a demolition permit is pulled and all the existing improvements are raised, right, demolished, the property will only pay land tax, just as any other project that the improvements have been demolished on would. And then once the project undergoes construction and is deemed to be substantially complete and the TCO or CO is issued, then the pilot kicks in.
And is that, does it change as vacant land when the building is leveled?
Yeah, what will happen is the assessor will take the improved value of the property off the tax bill because the improvements no longer exist and you just pay the land tax.
So
Okay.
that'll be for a period of roughly 18 months during the
Right.
demolition and construction.
Right. And then, I guess that was it. Oh, and the RAB payment, when does that begin then? Does that begin at year 1?
Okay, well, I think that depends on when the RAB is issued, and I think we should probably defer to council for the redeveloper as to the timing of the RAB payments.
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
say that these projections have taken the RAB out already.
Into
This is
account,
after
so-
the RAB payment.
All right, I don't want to talk out of school here, but presumably that's going to be tied with substantial completion of the project.
Okay.
But it is also important to note, you mentioned the $430,000 payment. That is our total tax bill. The town's portion of that is roughly $90,000.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, the balance is the school portion.
school of the county, right?
But that's what, about 70, 80%?
In Parsippany, depending on the year, between 60 and 65% of your tax dollar goes to the school board.
And 92, in this case, 92,000 goes to the township, to the
township.
municipality.
Correct, right. You know,
Okay.
the township gets rough dollar because the county also gets a cut, all right? You know, the township gets about 22 or 23%.
Right. But we don't get the minimum payment, so when the RAB payment begins, is that at that full amount, even though the,
So I believe what the chart shows is the payment minus what is already removed in order to service the debt on the RAB bond.
okay.
I think Janice
correct.
is, just to clarify, your question is there a period in time where we are paying towards the RAB, but we haven't started to collect on the payments to the town?
No.
Well, yeah,
Mr. Parchman, the number of COA units that you're proposing in Phase 1 and Phase 2?
I'm not 100% sure of the phasing. It's a mathematical calculation.
Okay. I received information on Saturday night, which I read on Sunday. And we have a total of 33 units built within the project, with 21 in Phase 1 and 12 in Phase 2.
That sounds about right.
Okay? All right. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll just answer your question, Councilwoman. My notes say, with respect to Phase 1, and this may change, I think, with the actual construction plan, 1 mixed-use building in Phase 1, 2 retail buildings in Phase 1, consisting of approximately 64,000 square feet of retail space, 273 residential units. My notes say of which 252 will be market rate units and 21 will be affordable units.
That
Does
sounds,
that sound more or less right?
yes.
That's the information we
Right,
received.
okay, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Okay, so you have questions? Council President, are we going to take questions now, or we're going to wait till the end, or we're going to have them just speak to them in the back?
Yeah, why don't we have, you guys, you're going to be here, right?
Sure.
So you can
Yeah.
answer one-on-one questions for the public in case, you know, because we have a 5-minute time limit. There may be some more people that want to speak to you
Absolutely.
more than 5 minutes.
Yes.
Why can't we let them speak now, right after the presentation?
Okay.
There's
We
also a
can.
public
On this
hearing.
topic only?
Okay, well,
There's also a public hearing on this ordinance, so.
Well, keep in mind, yeah, we're going to have 2 ordinances. There's going to be 2
We have-
public
yeah,
hearings
we have a
on these,
public
so they
hearing
could
on
speak
this.
then, or they could speak now, whatever the council wishes.
Well, I thought this was the question and answer period for them. They can speak later, but they won't have question and answer.
We can, if Council President, that's your
Sure.
call, if you'd like to do that.
let's do it now.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put aside right now a very small portion. Anyone who would like to come up with the 5-minute time limit with regards to, you would ask any questions you want, and then Stanberry will answer the questions. We are not going to engage in a back and forth dialogue, so we'll do it as you guys would do it during public session.
Just wait until they're done with if they have more than one question, let them ask all their questions and then you can answer them. So we don't have back
To
and
my
forth.
ability, yes, sir.
Okay. So at this point, we'll entertain questions. Come on up, Nick. Yeah, Nick, come in.
Mike? There you go, Nick.
You're calling the Route 10 traffic with the roundabouts. I understood that roundabouts were being phased out in other states for safety reasons and accidents, but you're saying it's an improvement. Isn't it more of an accommodation just for that development, just for your proposal for the the businesses and the people living there. So why is it being called an improvement and not an accommodation? And how will that accommodation, has there been any traffic studies? And especially concerned that the roundabouts and the delays in that area, and what, besides the roundabout and the diversion, what other additives to this so-called improvement is there?
Is that
all your question?
Sure. I don't know if the mic's on, but there's Langen Engineering has done reams and reams of study and presented those to NJDOT. First, they meet with NJDOT to determine the amount of traffic, how much traffic is going to be generated, and what direction those trips are going to come and go from. They put it into a model. That's then presented back to NJDOT. So that tells NJDOT and our engineers where the stress points are that needs to be addressed. And in doing so, they identified the 202 intersection, no big surprise, as one of the areas that is of major concern. What this, as I alluded to earlier, what this does is it takes all the traffic coming from 287, coming from the east, that would go to these projects off of that intersection. So it's a big improvement to reducing trips on that intersection. Regarding the roundabouts, I'm not the biggest fan of roundabouts, but this was a combination of a DOT request that they thought that this was the best way to handle this and meets their design standards. So this was done in collaboration with a whole team of engineers down in Trenton at NJDOT. This has been going on since very early on in this project. So it's been back and forth with NJDOT and the town and Delta Dental. There's a big disruption to Delta Dental in their back corner of their parking lot. So we have agreement with them to make some improvements on their property to accommodate, replace their parking. But it's been a collaborative process that has gotten us to this point. Yes, it will directly benefit those three properties for sure, but it also has a big impact on the regional traffic impacts at the 202 intersection.
Just further on the roundabout issue, in my private practice, I do a fair amount of developer work at NJDOT. There's been some considerable rethinking at DOT over the last 10 years with respect to roundabouts and their appropriateness in some locations. Some of that rethinking is driven by traffic volumes and also roadway speed. And if the most recent one that I'm familiar with, where I represented an adjacent property owner, is in Newark on Haynes Avenue and 1 and 9, which is a pretty heavily traveled roadway at a fairly significant speed. And you are starting to see more roundabouts, particularly in commercial shopping centers. So as I said, there was a time when the roundabout configuration was somewhat disfavored, but it seems to be back in vogue now in some instances.
Mr. Rosenthal, you have a question?
Yeah, Richard Rosenthal. Oh, I forgot the microphone's over here.
Your address.
I'm looking at.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes, I'm directly in. Directly in traffic.
No, your address.
3 Cambridge Road, Morris Plains. That's another story. One of these days I'll live in Parsippany. I'm looking at the turn going into the Cali. I made it just today. To me, it was a great sweep, no traffic. Made the turn. It looks to me I'll be going 50 miles an hour. All the traffic going 50 miles on Route 10. It looks like we're going to have to make a sharp right turn to go in. Whereas before you have a great look at the turn and look at the other. And for those of us who have made the turn from Route 10 going across the road, it's a big going further down. It's a nice wide turn going in there, and you have that part. Is that turn going to remain?
It's going to remain, yes.
Okay, but all we did was we continued on the circle. So now you have us coming to the end, stopping, going around the circle. No, go to the right.
Yes, yeah, so.
Yeah,
right
now,
today
okay,
you go
stop.
here.
Now we made the right turn. Yeah, you're getting rid of that. That was the easy part.
That's
Now you're
correct.
making us go into a traffic circle and come out.
That's correct. You're coming, going around the circle.
And that's better?
Back around.
No.
Please state your name and address.
Elaine Cooper, 55 Farron Drive. You've shown us the perimeter traffic setup. I'd like to see what the interior traffic setup looks like and your parking plans. Do you have them tonight?
Well, these little red stars indicate entrances to the project. There's a 2 to 3 level parking deck underneath this building, underneath this one. This is a 6 level parking deck, the building in the back corner, this one. And then this building also has parking underneath it. The concept is all the surface level parking, including under this building and this building, will be for the retail guests. The upper levels will be for the residential. That's right here.
Pedestrian crossing over from these buildings to this building from the traffic that was going through there.
Let me go back to this slide. This whole area here, as I referred to as the Wooner, is being designed to really slow down the pedestrian traffic. It'll be very obvious that pedestrian has the right-of-way in this situation. There will be bollards placed in these areas to keep so the vehicular traffic knows where they need to go. There'll be perpendicular parking, very little, but in this area, the special pavement area here is where the main traffic will go. Once again, it's to give the retailers really the how to say this. They're very concerned about vehicular parking, and getting them to face inwards to the project versus out towards Route 10 is a big lift for us, and it's taken a lot of convincing to do that, but it's very critical for the success of the town center portion. So we've had success in that by presenting this concept. And the way it's designed, let me see the best way to show you here. Vehicular traffic can go all the way around the project here, permitting us to close the road down here and right here to create a totally pedestrian zone here, as I mentioned, for special events.
Ken Dolsky, 21 Winfield Drive. Are the payments to Parsippany in any way, shape, or form dependent upon your occupancy rate? What if we had a recession, a deep recession, in the next 2 or 3, 5 years, and and you couldn't rent half the place?
The minimum payments are mandatory. They're not based on revenue. If we don't make those payments, the pilot, is my understanding, council can correct me, the pilot gets torn up and we revert back to normal taxes.
So it could happen, but then there wouldn't be a project, or then you would be on your own in terms of having to pay your taxes and.
Well, we're paying regardless. We're either paying the minimum payment for the pilot, or we're paying the normal taxes. That the assessor will tell us what the bill is, and we'll pay it. So if for some reason we're not making the minimum payment, we then revert back to the normal taxes.
So in the event that the minimum payment's not made, the agreement then goes into default, and then by operation of law, the agreement terminates, and the property goes back to the tax roll.
And is that better or worse for us?
It all depends on what the assessed valuation of the property is at the time that there's a default.
Wouldn't we know the assessed value before this
Well, it's,
starts?
you know, the assessed value will fluctuate somewhat based on the income potential of the property. Now, that's a determination for the assessor to make every year.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you, we owned the shops in Union Hill for, I don't know, 15 years and never missed a payment, for what that's worth.
Okay, so no one else come forward? All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Continuing under the Business Administrator's report, we have a presentation this evening from Leslie London and Edward Snikes regarding the Council on Affordable Housing obligation. Just to bring the Council up to speed, we do have a hard deadline of February of 2019 to submit our affordable housing plan to the Superior Court here in Morris County. So Leslie and Ed are here to bring us up to speed on that progress.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. We hope this evening to provide general information to you that covers affordable housing in New Jersey that's been going on for more than 40 years, and we are going to provide it to you tonight in hopefully 40 minutes. So it's a lot of information, and feel free to have questions at the end if council permits. Again, my name is Leslie London. I'm your Affordable Housing Counsel. I am a partner with McManaman, Scotland, and Bauman. Our firm is in Roseland, New Jersey. And I've handled several of these cases since the process began in 2015. And as your business administrator mentioned, the township is on a very tight time frame for preparing its affordable housing plan. And we are before a judge who is retiring in March of next year, and she has directed the remaining Morris County municipalities that have not resolved their cases to have them done before she retires. So that is our goal. Just a little bit of background information. Many of you may have, from newspaper articles and from things throughout the state, have heard of Mount Laurel Housing. It goes back as far as 1975, when the first decision came out regarding affordable housing. It followed several years later with Mount Laurel 2, and those two cases really set the groundwork for the obligation and the mandate that each township or municipality in New Jersey has a constitutional obligation to provide its fair share of affordable housing in the region. Mount Laurel 3 followed in 1986, which affirmed the validity of New Jersey's Fair Housing Act. And under the Fair Housing Act, COA, the Council on Affordable Housing, was created. It was established to provide rules and regulations to determine each municipality's affordable housing obligation and to certify plans that the township and municipalities would ultimately promulgate. Each township, Parsippany included, must prepare a housing element and fair share plan. It's mandatory, you don't have a choice. And that plan is to address how the municipality is going to meet its housing obligation for the period involved. COA over the years promulgated rules for the first and second rounds. They're generally on 10-year cycles. And in each of those rounds, the township did prepare timely reports and plans and received what's called substantive certification from COA. The third round came subsequently after that, and the township did prepare a third round plan and petitioned COA for substance certification on 2 occasions. During this time period, however, COA's rules were challenged. There was significant litigation that covered many years, and at one point the regulations and rules were found to be non-compliant by the court. The Fair Share Housing Center, which is the advocate for housing in New Jersey, filed the major lawsuit that culminated in the March 10th, 2015 Supreme Court decision, which is referred to as Mount Laurel 4. In that decision, ultimately, the Supreme Court said to the municipalities and to COA, COA, you have not done your job. You have not promulgated valid rules. I'm taking away your power. And the court gave the power back to, the Supreme Court gave power back to the local courts to determine the municipality's housing obligation. And judges were assigned and appointed in each vicinage to hear these cases. So this is back in March of 2015. The courts gave the municipalities up until July of that year to file what's called a declaratory judgment action with the Superior Court. And under that DJ action, the court would review the municipality's housing plan and determine whether or not that plan was constitutionally compliant with the state's Mount Laurel requirements. Courts were also authorized to give the municipality, if they timely filed, what's referred to as temporary immunity, and that would protect the municipalities against what's called builder remedy lawsuits. So back on July 8th, 2015, Parsippany timely filed their DJ action and was granted temporary immunity, which it continues to have to this day. Shortly thereafter, you had several interested parties and one intervener who sought to participate in the township's case. The Fair Share Housing Center is an automatic party. The developers who are in the case are interested in having a plan or a project included as part of the township's plan. The township has taken the position generally to sit down and at least hear from each of those developers who have come to it with a plan to see how that plan potentially could be part of the township's overall plan. So during this period also, Fair Share Housing engaged the services of Dr. Kinsey, a well-known consultant, and he prepared an analysis and report laying out, in his view, a methodology and determining what the obligation should be throughout the state. The obligation is based on regions, not individual municipalities. Parsippany Troy Hills is part of Region 2, and Region 2 takes into consideration Morris County, Essex County, Union County, and Warren County. So you can't just look at at Parsippany. The region is looked at in determining the obligation. Fair Share Housing Center's number for Parsippany Troy Hills was extremely high. Their number was 2,865 affordable units. And if you multiply that by 5, you get 14,325 total units. So in order to get affordable units, you need to have at least 5 times market units. So that's an extremely high number of units to be built over a 10-year period. What happened at that point was that the townships and municipalities got together and formed a municipal consortium. eConsult was the second consultant that was ultimately selected, and they prepared a solutions report. Their numbers for each of the municipalities was extremely low. So you had 2 levels of numbers, one very high, and on the other spectrum, one very low. The courts at that time also appointed special court masters to assist them in determining what numbers and obligations should be determined. The judges, for the most part, some of them had no background in land use and in planning, so they relied very heavily on court masters who are planners. The current the judge in this case is Judge Mary Ann Neergaard, as I mentioned, and she also appointed a regional court master, which was Richard Redding, to assist her. So the issue that came about was, what is the methodology to be used to determine a municipality's obligation? And also at this time, a second issue arose, whether there should be an additional obligation imposed on municipalities for the period of time that COA didn't act. Between 1999 and 2015, COA did not adopt a full set of rules, and that's referred to as the gap period. The municipalities, of course, argued that the gap numbers should not be added, and the developers and Fair Share Housing argued that they should. It was litigated all the way through the New Jersey Supreme Court, and ultimately the Supreme Court said, yes, those numbers or that obligation must be included. So now you have another obligation being imposed on the municipalities. So since 2015, each of vicinages has been moving at different pace. You have some towns and municipalities moving very quickly, pushing for settlements. Middlesex County is one for an example. And at this point, we have approximately 250 municipalities that have settled and resolved their affordable housing plans. Mercer County was the one vicinage to actually have a full trial on what the methodology should be. And that trial lasted 40 days last year. But what was very important out of that case was you had the competing experts for 40 days talk about what the methodology should be. And ultimately, Judge Jacobson, in March of this year, issued her decision. It was over 200 pages. And she painstakingly went through what had happened in those 40 days and determined what methodology should be applied. And in determining that methodology, she had to look at the entire state. So numbers were produced and a methodology was available for each other county to look at for use. So Judge Jacobson's decision at this point remains undisturbed, and it has been used as the preferred methodology for each of the other vicinages. Judge Neergaard, who I mentioned is the judge for Parsippany, has adopted Judge Jacobson's methodology, and she had directed Richard Redding to apply the principles from that case for the Morris County municipalities. So in July of this year, Richard Redding issued a report to the judge which identified the number for each of the Morris County municipalities. Parsippany was listed as 1,313 affordable units for the period 1999 through 2025. So that's the number that's out there, at least for purposes of the court at this point. I put this chart together for a point of comparison. When you look at the entire state of New Jersey, there are 25 municipalities that have an obligation number over 1,000. As you can see, Parsippany has at 1313. There are 10 more municipalities throughout the state that are higher than Parsippany. The highest one, Toms River, at 2,491. And again, these are affordable units. This chart shows where Parsippany is in relation to other Morris County municipalities. And of course, Parsippany, being the largest municipality in the county, has the largest obligation. But this chart also shows those municipalities in the county that have 500 unit obligations, and there are at least 10 other municipalities, including Parsippany, that meet that criteria. The closest one to you is Hanover at 897. So the COA rules provide mechanisms to the municipalities to adjust that number. The number can be reduced by various factors, one including a vacant land adjustment analysis to look at whether or not there is land enough to build these units. Mr. Snickes will go into more detail about that analysis. Ed and I and our working team over the past probably 7 months or so have been working very aggressively and regularly with the Fair Share Housing Center and the court's master to determine what's called a realistic development potential for the township. What is realistic for the township? Yes, you say it's 1313, but is that a realistic number? And it takes into consideration various factors. So we are in negotiation with the Fair Share Housing Center. We are very close to finalizing what I refer to as the RDP, the realistic development potential number for the township. And it's looking to be around the range of 850 to 1,000 affordable units for the period 2015 through 2025. Now, this is a significant reduction from Fair Share's initial number and even from Judge Jacobson's methodology at 1313. So you have a number, and there are still other factors that come into consideration to bring that number even further down. And I refer to it as a toolbox. You have currently in the township various apartments. Some of them may be deemed affordable and can be used for crediting purposes, which Ed will get into, to help bring down the number. Actions that the municipality took in the past, some may be taken into consideration to bring your number down. Again, Mr. Snickes will get into detail about those. But the other tools in your toolbox to address your housing number